What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the LessAlex podcast. I am your host, LessAlex, and today we have on PowrDragn, aka Daquan. How's it going?
Man, it's good as always. Like I try not to have too many bad days. That's
Hey,
the way I live life.
that's the best way to go about life, of course. Man, that's already dropping knowledge. Already dropping knowledge. Before we get into the pod, though, let me go ahead and get all of the housekeeping things out of the way. If you enjoy the content, or if it's your first time here, make sure to check me out on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube at LessAlex on all those. And if you listen to the podcast, you enjoy it, check out Apple Podcasts, drop a 5-star review there, and over on Spotify. It basically goes to all the podcast apps, so wherever you're listening, you can subscribe over there, rate it with them 5 stars, and if you really want to go above and beyond, check it out on patreon.com/LessAlex. Check out all the stuff over there. I appreciate all my lovely, beautiful patrons. But with all that fun stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. I already asked you how you're doing, but so you are a full-time Magic the Gathering and gaming content creator, but basically, for the most part, you do focus on Magic, yeah?
Yeah, that's a big chunk of it for sure.
Awesome. So you've also have 20 years in the game industry, which is amazing. You've put out over 1,000 videos in 2 years. You've been doing content for the last 2 years. You put over 1K videos. You're like I told you whenever we were DMing, that's beast mode status. Like that's
It's
impressive.
insane, honestly. I don't recommend
You're
it.
you're a mad lad, my friend. You're a mad lad because that is serious dedication. But also, in addition to all of that, you owned your own game store at 21. So that is really awesome. I worked in gaming for, I would say, probably a total of about 7 or 8 years. Always been close to the community. But so I know the trials and tribulations of being at least on the managerial side of the gaming industry
Yeah,
can be.
and that's a little bit of a crazy story, honestly, because
Drop it on us.
me and another guy were working for someone that ran a store. And to be fair, his store was not that good. It was a very small store. He was making mediocre money at best. He was really living off his wife's income at the time. And he had gone off to a trade show that summer. It might have been, I don't think, it might have been Gen Con that year. I don't really remember.
Okay.
But anyway, he gets an offer from one of the distributors to work for them. He comes back. He's telling us this story, and I swear to God, he's like, yeah, and I was thinking about selling you guys the store. And oh yeah, let me tell you about these two chicks I saw kissing on the dance floor that night. And I was like, whoa, back up. Like,
Rewind
you're
it.
talking about selling
Pause.
Yeah, like this.
Pause.
He's like, no, let me tell you about these chicks. Like, no. I think we need to talk about this other thing first.
Yeah.
Right.
His
But
priorities
ultimately,
were,
yeah, and we talked over. And honestly, at this point, I just turned 21, maybe like a month before or something. I have next to no money. I'm still trying to finish college or whatever, right?
Sure.
And I end up going like on this 2-day bender of like going through every single number he has, every piece of information I could find about the business, putting in a bunch of Excel spreadsheets, and eventually just saying, all right, he's not making near as much money as I think he could make. How do we make a deal to buy this business?
Right.
So ultimately, bought a business with no money down, and we just agreed to pay more than it's worth, and we just made monthly payments on it the
Wow.
rest of the way. Because the way I saw it is, if I'm wrong and we fail, well, I still don't have anything today, and we had a clause where he just gets the business back. So like, what do I care? Like it was literally a no risk opportunity for me, and I
Seems
got to the
pretty
business,
good.
and I ran it for 16 years.
Dude, that is awesome. That is, yeah, I mean, that's a hell of a deal, too.
Yeah, I tell people I've always been able to hustle, and I've always been resourceful.
Yeah.
Like those are my two benefits in life. Those are my skills,
Right.
right? I'm a resourceful person.
Oh, man, that's awesome. So, yeah, I mean, obviously you said you ran it for 16 years. When did I assume that's in the past now, or when did that come to?
Yeah.
When
I
did you
sold it to
sunset?
another guy
Awesome.
in February of 2019. No, 20. That would be wrong. February 2016, because
Okay.
I decided I was just going to do something different, right? Like I'd done it forever, literally most of my adult life at that point.
Yeah.
and decided, let me try something else. So I had reached out. There was an opportunity for me to do some very good stuff for Wizards of the Coast. So I went and worked for them for a couple of years. So I packed up, sold my business, moved to Renton, Washington, and went to work for them.
Wow.
So yeah, that's when I decided to like, all right, cool, it's time to move on, try something different. Which is crazy because a bunch of people were like, how can you just sell a business and not try to get the most money for it? And whatever. Like for me, it was more about I did my thing, I got some
Right.
money out of it. I sold it at a decent price so somebody could afford it and still keep the community intact and do some good things.
That's awesome.
Like it wasn't about the money at any stage of any of that. It was just a job because that's how I've always viewed it. Even though I was running a business, like it's how I put money on the table or food on the table, right? It's I'm
Right.
still working. So I never really viewed it as like this big thing that I'm doing that I own a business. It was just like it was a job.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think it's you're definitely seems like you were community focused,
Oh yeah,
because
always.
you were, willing to the person you ended up selling to, you didn't try and squeeze them like you said, and you just
Yeah,
wanted the
and I did
community to
have
be intact.
two other retailers that I know because I'm still part of a retail, I guess we want to call it a retail board for a community of the largest community I know of game store retailers actually that still exists. And
Nice.
several of them were interested, and I could have got more money, but it was like, the terms were either one way or the other. I didn't
Right.
necessarily like, or the things they wanted to change, or I knew how they run their business, and it wouldn't make sense locally. So I just made the decision that felt the best.
Yeah. Went with your gut and
Yeah,
paid
and it
off.
worked out.
Yeah. So you said 2016 you sell the
Yeah.
business. When did the whole like full time you want to really grind content creation? You wanted to be a thing that you wanted to strive for. Like what year
Well,
was that about?
Well, the interesting thing is, afterwards of the Coast, I went to work for Card Kingdom for a couple of years,
Okay.
and I actually was released, fired, but they
Yeah.
say released from your job or whatever.
Yeah.
They can put it nicely,
Yeah.
but released from my job at Card, and it was partly there were several things in play, but mostly restructuring and whatever, and I'd already done most of what I could do for them anyway,
Yeah.
so I get it.
Sure.
But I had money saved up, I had a severance package, whatever. I was treated pretty well,
Nice.
and ultimately, this was actually it was the week before Thanksgiving in 2019, which timing wasn't
Ah,
great. But
the good old days, right? The before
yeah, but I
times.
I just started my podcast like a month before that, I think, and I just started streaming on Twitch maybe 2 or 3 weeks prior to that.
Okay.
So I was sitting around. I said, okay, I have this little bit of money saved up. I have some ideas. I knew some people had already done content creation. I knew companies in the industry that I could potentially work with for sponsorships or whatever. So it's like,
Yeah.
is there a thing I could bring to the table that's different? Could I present stuff differently in a way that's interesting to people and still make a go of this?
Yeah.
So I told myself if I could do it for, I think I said like 9 to 10 months. And in that amount of time, could I pay 75% of my bills by the end of that? If so,
Wow.
I'll keep doing it. And here we are. So
Achievement
it worked out.
unlocked. Yeah, it worked out. Definitely. Definitely. Oh man, so 2019, what a
Yeah.
time to go full time, obviously right before I mean, it's the elephant in the room. The pandemic hits. Did that change anything for you
Oh,
fundamentally,
drastically.
or what
Drastically.
changed? I mean,
Okay.
obviously
Well,
a lot changed
initially,
for everyone, and
yeah,
I don't want to uh, belittle the obviously the
no, no. Like at
mass.
this point, I think everybody knows how
Yeah,
big the pandemic's
yeah,
been. I don't. If anybody accuses you for downplaying it or
yeah,
whatever, like, oh, come on, right? We all know how big it is.
yeah.
But for me, it was a matter of like I'd already started reaching out to people that were doing stuff at conventions, so I could do stuff on site. I'd already started talking to the connection of retailers I had because I was going to do some stories on like industry stuff and
Mm,
like let's spotlight some stores and like
that's
how people
awesome.
got started and talk about the industry that a lot of people don't know
Yeah,
about, right? Like,
the
because
other
there's always
side.
people asking, how do you start a store? How expensive is a thing really? Or why did this company make this decision or
Hmm.
whatever, right? And I'm like, oh, well, I know people. I could make this
Yeah,
happen.
you could do that. Yeah.
So I started lining up dates. I was actually a step from about to start buying a bunch of plane tickets, actually, because I was already, okay, I already have this lined up. I know what I'm going to do. I started getting a bunch of info from people. I actually still have a box of business cards, and that's I've never been able to hand out like equipment I haven't used. Like I was ready to go, And then, late February, early March, it was like, no, we're just shutting everything down,
Yep.
right? We're not
Nobody.
going to have conventions. Like
Yep. Nobody's going
stores weren't
anywhere.
going to have their doors open, or we shouldn't be visiting people. And I was like, wow, okay. Well, this whole plan got blown up. So again, being resourceful, settled down for a couple of days, decided, okay, how am I going to pivot? How am I going to do this? And I decided, you know what? I'm going to be at home every day. I can't go out and do everything I want to do. So why don't I just focus on doing some daily YouTube videos, and we'll still find ways to work in this content, but I'll use this as my time to explore until the pandemic passes. Now, admittedly, I didn't think we'd be going into year three,
Year three.
And still, have issues. But, it was still working out okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it seems like it has. I think if, working at home, which is most content creators work at home, especially now, but like even before the pandemic, I think that's like the best way to be right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we know how did you get introduced into Magic? We know how you got introduced into owning a game store, but like I assume it was long before. Like you had to have known what Magic the Gathering was before you started a game shop. It's been the backbone of game shops.
Yeah, actually, we were on a field trip. I can actually tell it was at Padre Staples Mall in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Okay.
We had stopped, and I don't remember what we stopped there for after the trip, but I walk into this, I guess it was just a hobby store, because that's the other thing too. Like people who have grown up, over the last 15, 20 years, just assume this idea of just like game stores are a thing.
Yeah.
Game stores weren't really a thing until about 18 years ago or so.
Yeah.
Like they were still new at that time.
Yep.
But you found like bookstores, you found, like Walden Books would sell D&D stuff or whatever. You'd go into a sports card or comic book place and they had some Magic or whatever it was. So picked up a deck. And what's funny is I could have bought an actual unlimited deck, but I had somebody else tell me, well, this Revise, because they had them on the shelf at the same time.
Right.
And I asked the guy what the difference was, and he says, oh, well, Revise has cards from like Arabian Nights and this other set and whatever. And I'm like, oh, well, that's obviously the one I want.
Obviously, the better one.
Like, in hindsight, that was probably like, I don't know, who knows, probably like a $10,000 decision or something. But, that was also forever ago. But anyway, I pick it up. I'm on the bus on the way back. I'm reading through it. And realize, oh, well, crap, somebody else has to have another deck to play with, or I can't really do anything with it, right? So I end up just putting it away. It goes into my drawer for a couple of days. And coincidentally, it was about maybe a week or two later, a friend of mine starts describing this game. And I'm like, man, that sounds familiar. And then I'm like, wait, is it called Magic? And he's like, yeah, how'd you know? I'm like, oh, I have some of that at home. He's like, oh, cool. My brother just gave me some cards and taught me how to play or whatever. So we eventually the next day get together and we played a bunch of Magic with two really junky starter decks, because that's all we had.
Oh, yeah.
And that was kind of the start of everything for me.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Did you guys, and I think I might know the answer, but did you guys know the rules, or did you guys just kind of, you played?
In the sense of like what everybody thought they knew the rules in the beginning. I try to tell people, like, if you haven't had to live through that experience, it was kind of amusing. Because you would go to like somebody else's play group, or you'd go to an event in the next town over or whatever, and somebody would have a rule that you're just like, what?
A little bit different rules everywhere you go.
Like, no, we can go like this. Matter of fact, I just shared a TikTok yesterday, or YouTube short, telling people about the early days where if you had a rules question, you either went to the rec.games board, which are these old bulletin boards that people may not know what they are.
Right.
That you were hoping somebody else already had the rules problem, so you could just read about it and have your answer. If not, you had to literally call long distance during business hours to Wizards of the Coast, to get. And they had people who would answer rules questions.
That's awesome.
That was a thing back in the day.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. You would be on a payphone during lunch in high school, like trying to get a question answered.
Yeah, we would always. Our big thing was like, like Llanowar Elves would tap, and then you'd go find a forest out of your deck and put it on the battlefield.
You know what's funny? I've heard multiple people say that was a thing for them, and nobody in our groups ever had that come up. So it's kind of funny how like you're probably like the fourth or fifth person I've heard a similar story to, and that never came up for us when we started. Like it's so amusing what different groups interpret.
Yeah.
And on some level, it kind of becomes like that tribal knowledge thing, right? If the person that teaches you to play understands it to be a certain thing, well then the next two or three people because like you teach somebody and they teach somebody, you're all playing the same way that
Yep.
happens to be wrong.
As long as you're all playing in the confines of the same rules
Yeah,
and you're all having fun, doesn't really matter, I guess.
exactly. Nobody notices you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. My cousin Jeffrey's elf deck was insane though. Like because of that, and then
Well,
he'd like
obviously,
tap Well Wisher and gain 1,000,000 life every turn, and my Rorik's Blade Wing's trying to like crash in.
yeah, of
It's just
course.
never gonna kill him because he's gaining 7 life every turn.
Yep.
Oh man. Um, yeah, those are the days, man. So you're full time, so you're essentially making content every single day. You've got a podcast. What's the name of your podcast?
Color of Magic.
That's awesome. So what's that about?
The way we describe it is it's a magic and gaming podcast where we talk about all types of issues that affect people at and away from their gaming tables and computers. And instead of just talking about like this is the deck that won this week or here's the new game that just came out, we spend a lot of time talking about like, we recently covered a lot of stuff with like the Blizzard Activision situation,
Oh yeah,
right? Because that was insane. Like that is one of the weirdest and grossest
yeah. It's
documents I've probably read for a business.
super unfortunate and just
Yeah, like
not
that
right.
was crazy, right? So we spent some time talking about that. We talked about, especially last year when all the protests and the George Floyd stuff was going on and everybody was looking for representation. We were addressing like what different companies were doing and how the public response was to different messages. So we covered that.
Mm-hmm.
Like this kind of depends on what's going on day to day, but we talk about a lot. This week was like Microsoft buying Sony or buying Activision Blizzard,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, well, how is that going to affect things going forward for people who like different games, right? So
Yeah.
we talked about that. So there's a bunch of different things we covered. Just kind of depends on what's going on.
That's awesome. Yeah, Microsoft essentially owns Hearthstone now. So
yeah,
so that'll be interesting. Obviously, that's Arena's. At least they think it's a top competitor. I don't know. I think.
Actually, I can tell you from having spent some time working with Wizards, like the reality is, I think players view different companies as competition. But I think if you were to ask somebody who sits at the top at Wizards of the Coast, whoever that's going to be now, because Chris Cox is now
he's the CEO,
one of the heads over at Hasbro, is they view themselves as trying to compete with entertainment, not particular games.
Okay,
right? The idea that think about Friday Night Magic as an example, right? You can go to your local store on a Friday, or you can go to the movies. So how do we make this more enticing for you to want to go to your local game store and socialize, hang out, spend money, buy Magic cards, whatever, instead of spending that $20 at the movie theater?
Sure. Yeah,
right?
No, that makes
They're not
perfect
necessarily
sense.
worried about Hearthstone necessarily, because one of the things I tried to describe to people recently, and this is kind of why I like doing the content I do, because I have like these different perspectives from the industry, is that people like to talk about, well, Arena should be like Runeterra, or Arena should be like Hearthstone, or whatever. But not understanding that even the scope of those businesses is different, right? When you look at something like Runeterra, like it doesn't make all that much money for a company. I think they had only made something like 16 or 20 million in the first year and a half. For a company that makes over, I think their number was 7 billion or some really ridiculous number.
Drop in the bucket is what you're saying.
Yeah. So I actually no, that was Blizzard. I think they had done like 4 billion or something. Still a big number.
Big number.
But yeah, so it's like, but for Wizards that has finally just crossed 1 billion, and that's with all of their things at Wizards of the Coast, not just Magic. That's the board games, the D&D, whatever, right? All their licensing and everything. You're working on a totally different scope and scale. So the way they're positioning each product in each company is completely different, and they're targeting different audiences. So though to us as gamers, they look similar because they're digital card games,
right?
Everything that Hearthstone, Arena, and Runeterra are doing are all vastly different for different reasons.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, competing for eyeballs, ultimately competing for time, right? And dollars, which equals time. But yeah, I hadn't even thought about it that way. But that makes.
Well, if you even look at some of the things that Blizzard does, or some of the things that Riot does, some of that is to cross-pollinate and market their own products, right? When you look at the games Blizzard makes, it's okay. I have never really played a lot of like World of Warcraft or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I know what a Murloc sounds like because I've played Hearthstone, right? That or whatever that weird.
Yeah,
exactly, right. So when you go into one of their other games or their environments, or you find something neat, you're like, oh, well, maybe I could go play Warcraft and I can play this type of character or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So some of what they do is for marketing to their own thing so they can keep the money within their own ecosystem,
Yeah, they all kind of
right?
just
Even
funnel
that
in,
is a
kind
different.
of.
Yeah, like I quit playing League of Legends because I think the League of Legends community is awful, but I was already attached enough to the characters and the style and everything else. I'm like, well, let me check out Teamfight Tactics. So I still play that because I don't have to have those terrible interactions, but I still get to use all those same characters
Yeah.
and stuff. So the branding makes sense, so it's different things, different purposes for each product.
Have you checked out Arcane? I know
I
it
have
was.
not. I have not.
I've watched like, and I've never been huge into League. I picked it up, played it a couple times, come back to it every couple years. Super casual, right?
Yeah,
um, but the show has been good. I'm like 4 or 5 episodes in.
I'm told that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty good, and the art style is, kind of, it's good enough to. It's kind of like cell shaded almost if you haven't seen.
that makes sense. Yeah,
But yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic about Magic's show that's going to be on, because I know it's going to get compared to Arcane, and Arcane
of
is
course it
the
is.
reviews have
Because
been
we're
insanely
nerds and we
good.
can't help ourselves.
Yeah, so I hope for Watsy's sake, I hope for Magic's sake that it's gonna be good, because man, after the fiasco that was the Legends thing, like the I forget what it was called, Magic Legends or whatever, it was like
Yeah.
Diablo. Like they
The
shut down the
problem though
game
is
after like 3 months or whatever. Ugh.
the problem though is, and I don't even know if the company ever said this or not, but it was more of just like, I think, and myself included, I think as gamers we were just expecting Diablo with a magic skin,
Hmm.
right? Like if you just gave us Diablo, you made it magic themed, and all the monsters were monsters we knew in Magic or
And the
whatever.
art was right. That
Yeah,
was a
we'd have
big
been
thing.
fine, right? But we didn't get that at all. We
Yeah.
got a completely different thing with the weird combat system and
Yep.
like a weird leveling system, and it just wasn't. And I don't even know if it was terrible. It just wasn't what everybody expected and wanted.
Right.
So it was doomed from the get go.
Hmm.
You know.
Yep, and it's a shame because I complain about Magic a lot, but I ultimately want Wizards to succeed because
Sure.
it's.
I tell people all the time, I gripe about Twitch, but Twitch is one of the OGs that we're always pulling for. Like, we want
Oh
the
yeah,
old guard to still do well. The things we like and are familiar with, we want to see those around in 15, 20 years.
yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's just difficult whenever they. Yeah, I guess as Magic players, we set such a high bar for the IP that it's kind of almost hard to live up to expectations, honestly.
Well, I tell
um,
people all the time, like, fans are the best and the worst thing to happen to every product on the planet. They're the reason you're gonna sell a bunch of stuff, and then the reason you're gonna feel miserable clocking in and looking at your email on Monday.
right.
It's just the way it is.
Absolutely. So speaking of like just creating content, you're out here making daily videos, vines, or not vines, TikToks. Wow. I just dated
That's
myself.
close enough.
I just dated myself. But yeah, TikToks, YouTube, all of the things, podcasts, everything. Do you have any like tips for creators that are maybe just starting out, or maybe even that they've been doing it for a while and just can't get over that hump? Or
Oh my gosh, do I?
all
How
right,
long are you going to give me? Because I could
I
go for
mean,
like an hour.
let's dig in, chat.
I mean, honestly, I've actually, even on the side, started doing consulting for people on content because it's become a big enough thing.
Yeah,
But one of the first things I would tell people is just go make something. That's truly the first step. Is like, I think, and especially as Americans more than anybody, is like we're always told you have to be the best and you have to put your best self forward and you can't fail and you can't. But
right.
the reality is, whatever you put out today is going to look like crap or sound like crap compared to what you put out in 6 months. And then you're going to look at that a year from then, and there's stuff right now that I look at from 2 years ago, and it doesn't even look like it was made by the same person.
Yeah,
But you're talking about the difference of video one versus video 1000, right? They just look different. They sound better. Like, I've gotten better microphones, and
hmm
like, just go do it. Because you're missing time to learn, you're missing time to grow. Like, the longer you wait, the longer you're going to have before you can hit the success point. No matter how prepared you are, it's not going to be good enough anyway.
yeah.
Just go do it. Right? That's probably my first biggest piece of advice. The other is understand that everybody who works for themselves or wants to run a business or whatever, you have to carry a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. You're going to have to be a little bit egotistical, right? You have to, like, and it sounds bad because we're constantly told you need to be humble, you need to do this, whatever, but you're going to have to be active in promoting yourself and putting yourself out there
Yeah.
and working with other people and, putting out opportunity letters or whatever. Like, you're going to have to be doing stuff and be active to push forward. And the reality is, if you're doing it, making content, running a business, whatever, you're only doing it because you either think you're going to be able to do it in a way that's different or offering something to some community that doesn't exist, or you're going to be able to do it better than somebody else.
Right.
If you don't believe those two things, then why are you doing it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
But you can't think either of those ways and not have a little bit, at least a smidge of an ego, or why would you be doing it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's counterintuitive to everything we've ever been told. But I said, look at all the people that are successful. Like, they all will tell you, like, oh, well, I thought this wasn't being served right, or I thought I could do this better than what was out there, or I thought I could make this thing nobody ever talked about, or whatever. It's the way all those people got big and got successful. So it's just do it. The other is, don't let cost hold you back. Yeah. One, there are a bunch of affordable ways to start,
especially now, because companies are going hard into the like streamer packages. Like, you can,
for sure,
like, not even Elgato, but like even other brands that are not as high end as Elgato make like a whole podcast. You can get a whole podcast kit for like $150, $200.
Absolutely.
Like, so.
And admittedly, these may not be your tools you want to use forever, but they're enough to get you started and put out decent stuff. But understand, there's people that have million-follower YouTube channels that shoot the majority of their stuff from their cell phone.
Yep.
All right. So
no, for sure.
You can find. I can even tell people, like, there was a point where I had people ask me, like, oh, did you get a new lighting setup, whatever? You know what I had? I had literally $10 lamps that I bought at Target, and I was using white dishcloths as diffusers on the lights.
Oh my God. Dude, that's clever, though.
Which my other thing, research constantly. But I had researched, okay, how does lighting work? What are some good perspectives to put the lights at, whatever? And I was just using those.
Mm-hmm.
And then my backlight at one point was just a multicolor bulb that I got, so 2 lamps and a bulb had cost me, I don't know, probably like $35 or something.
Nice.
And that's what I used. And people are like, oh, that looks so much better. That's amazing. Where'd you get your lights at? I was like, Target.
Target? Love it.
So yeah, there are ways to do it if you really want to do it.
Yeah.
But don't just assume you're just going to turn the camera on and people are going to show up. No. Or you're going to record something and they're going to go download it, right? There is a lot of work that's going to go into promotion, to accepting that, like, hey, you might only be at 5 listeners or 5 viewers or whatever for your first 6 or 7 videos. And then you get that 8th or that 10th one and okay, now it's exciting. But like, you can't expect you're going to go from 0 to 1,000 in 10 videos.
Right.
Nobody knows about you.
Right.
Like, they don't. I mean, like I said, even at that point when I started, I'd already had at that point I did have about 20 years already into the game industry. But those are all people that had met me at events. They knew me from business stuff. They'd been by my business shop or whatever. Nobody online knew who I was.
These people were people that you knew that were invested in you because they knew you were, they knew you were a good person and they wanted to invest in you, even if it's just watching, throwing your Twitch stream on in the background while they're finishing up a project for work or whatever.
Exactly. And people that know you, great. But that's such a small audience compared to the huge pool of stuff online.
Yeah.
So, which is funny because during the pandemic now I'm in an opposite situation where now a lot of people know of me, but I've never met those people.
Right.
So, which has been amusing because I even went to my local store not long ago, one of my only visits during the pandemic, because I was just going to go give some stuff away to people.
Nice.
And I had a couple people that were newer there and they didn't know who I was, but some of the people I'd seen were like, oh, hey, how's it going? Because they hadn't seen me in a year and a half or whatever.
Yeah.
And these people were like, oh, who's that? And they're like, oh, he has a YouTube channel and whatever. And it was like, oh, yeah. Another guy was like, yeah, I've watched his stuff and whatever. I'm like, cool. That's such a weird feeling when you're just like walking around and people know who you are.
Right.
And I'm like, I've never met these people. So, yeah, it's a whole different ballgame. It's going to be a different world once things open back up.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you're going to get recognized more and more once that starts, once the world starts to go back to normal. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I'm sure that's kind of shocking, you know, people recognizing you and you're like, wait a second, who are you? When, like, trying to recall when you met them or something.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
I guess, yeah, I do a thing on the internet now. People know me.
But yeah, man, like content creation's a whole different ball of wax than I think a lot of people believe it is. You know, like we were talking off the air, like if you think it's that easy, just ask yourself why everybody doesn't do it.
Right.
Whatever that job, whatever
Whatever it is. It
that
doesn't, not
career
even
is,
content
whatever.
creation. Just, we were talking about
Yeah,
basketball. Like,
exactly. Just anything. Think about it. If it's that easy, why don't more people do it?
hmm
Right? Because everybody would want easy money,
oh,
right?
yeah.
It does take work. Why do you see so many people walk away after they've already invested in a bunch of equipment
Yeah.
and time, whatever? It's, the thing about podcasts, even when I first started doing podcasts, one of the first stats I saw was something absurd, like some 30,000 podcasts or something get started every year in the country, but most of them are done by like episode 5.
Mm.
Right? So
Yeah.
people are starting it out, they get into it and go like, oh, I only got like 10 downloads or whatever, and then they quit, right? And
Yeah.
because they don't know what to expect. You got to have realistic expectations and know that it's going to take a while sometimes.
Yeah. I think the very first podcast I ever uploaded got like 3 or 4 listens or downloads or whatever you want to call it. And I was like, okay, next week and then next week we got 6, and then the next, like it,
There you go.
do. And my big issue is burnout. Like that's my big issue because I've started and stopped podcasting and just content in general like so many times, and it's like I got to get over the hump somehow. Just personally speaking.
What's funny is well, for me personally, here's an interesting fact I just thought about. Like, I actually was part of the first Magic the Gathering podcast 15 years prior to me actually starting the new show that we did, which is kind of funny.
What was the name of
Uh,
that?
the Mana Vault, I believe is what we called it. And actually, it was hosted on Brainburst, which eventually became TCG Player.
Oh wow.
That's how long ago it was. But one thing I would say about Burnout that I think could help people is
I'm all ears.
think about ways you can present your content that still are related to your core message or niche or audience, but allow you to do something different. Like using myself as an example on my YouTube channel. Well, granted, I also have multiple YouTube channels. I have one where I was showcasing some outdoor stuff I had, and I have another one where I do reviews of products and things. That the review one's actually pretty new. I've only had that one up for a couple of months. But for my gaming channel, it's like, okay, if I'm going to put Magic stuff up, I don't necessarily have to just play Magic on the channel all the time.
Yeah.
Like occasionally, like tomorrow as an example. So probably by the time you have this up, it'll be a couple of days ago. But
yeah,
I have a series I call Hidden Gems, where I talk about cards you probably already own that are worth money that you don't know about, right? Or products that you own that, I'll talk about. I think this this episode I'm putting up is going to talk about different types of life counters that come with products that are worth money that you didn't
like
know about.
the spin downs.
Yeah.
So some of those are big money.
Talk about some of those things that are still Magic and gaming related, but I'm not necessarily playing games, so I don't necessarily get burnt out from that, right? Like I have a Why series where occasionally I'll talk about, hey, here's a big topic that people don't know enough about. So I'm like, why did the card values go up so much during the pandemic? Right. And
I saw that video. That was a great video.
Yeah. So a bunch of different things like that. So I can keep doing related content that my audience still understands and appreciates, but I don't have to go through the burnout of going like, oh, I got to hop onto Arena and I got to record something else today or whatever. Like if I just want to take the day off, cool. Let me do something else today that I know this crowd is still like. And you can do that with everything, right? If you're doing reviews, maybe you're doing phone apps or something for a little bit and you decide, hey, I want to buy a new camera for my recording. Let me talk about that and break that down. Or since you're already going to buy it anyway and you're obviously interested in it, just record the unboxing of it or whatever, right? Find other ways to do what you're doing, but introduce something else to it.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Stay in your niche, but switch it up a bit.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing on YouTube is niching down is super important.
Yeah.
And I think that's what wrecks a lot of people, that they start out wanting to just do variety, and it's the thing you have to remember is that the recommendation systems, or the algorithm as people like to call it, but the recommendation systems are designed to give people more of what they want. So you stay on their platforms longer, you watch more ads, you buy more stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
If you're doing a large variety of things that don't have a constant through line, the system can't figure out where to align your product and who to send it
Right.
to. So, and it's a combination of those systems figuring out both what the important things are of your content and what's in common so people are coming to it, but then also understanding what the viewers, each of them, are also enjoying or attached to want to
Right.
come to your channel. So if you keep changing, then it's like, well, now there's a different audience coming to your thing or whatever. And now eventually it can work, but it's going to take longer because the systems need more and more data to
Yeah.
find the right, for them, customer to watch your stuff.
Sure.
So when you niche down, it's a lot easier.
Yep. No, that makes perfect sense. Especially on YouTube, and I've been grinding at YouTube for some time as well. So, but yeah. So, what are your goals for this year and just moving forward into, obviously the year's just starting, so that's always kind of a good question this time of the year, is like, what are your goals for 2022 and beyond, short term and long term?
I'd say right now, one of the toughest issues for me is I've built a lot of, like, I've set up a lot of future opportunity, right? I have situations with like sponsors, some content I want to make for that. I have 4 or 5 other creators that literally, if I wanted to hop on a plane right now and go travel, like I could go do other content with them.
That's awesome.
So I would love for Omicron to just do whatever the hell it's going to do and get out of the way,
Yeah.
So I can open up those doors and really kind of explore that some more, because I think there's a lot of opportunity there for me that I haven't really approached. Matter of fact, I already have an NDA signed with one of the convention series because I was looking, doing commentary and doing live stuff from their event and hosting stuff for them. But there may not even be events, until, if we're lucky, maybe midsummer, right?
Yeah.
So
At the
that
earliest.
may not even be happening. So yeah, so for now, I'm really looking at spending time building up my newer channel, my review channel, because over there I'm able to. I think my first video I did was reviewing 20 different brands of boxer briefs from
Okay.
a silly discussion that started on Twitter. That I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to do this, and then I just started a whole channel off of that.
That's awesome.
But I reviewed like food stuff on there. I've got actually these cushions I'm testing right now that I'm sitting on. I'll be doing a review of those soon. But yeah, just doing some different things and kind of exploring what other content's out there, taking other lessons I can, and continuing to bring a different perspective and, I guess, different presentation to things in the gaming space, particularly Magic. But hopefully I can bring some of that to other creators, because one of the sad things, and I basically just went, hey guys, I'm going to have time this year. Some things aren't working out, obviously, because we're on hold. So if you want me to do content with you, hey,
Yeah.
let me know, or whatever. I have space available. And you would be surprised the number of people that said, like, oh, we should get together and play some games sometime. I'm like, okay, but we could do something more creative or
Right.
better or interesting, or talk about different topics, or do a co-stream where we like critique each other or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but and it's not just Magic. Gaming as a whole, I think you have a lot of people that, man, this is going to sound so awful, but just do lazy content, right? We do the thing that's the most obvious, and then people wonder, why is my channel not growing? Why am I not getting more viewers? And where it's like, well, because you're doing the same thing everybody else is doing. Like, an example is I got to work with Tolarian Community College and the professor over there. He's got, I don't know, almost 600,000 followers, something over on YouTube.
Pretty sure he is the largest Magic the Gathering focused channel, including Magic the Gathering itself. He's like bigger than Magic.
I think it's like him and Game Nights, and there's like one other that are in that large number space. Not very many.
Yeah.
But even when I went to work with him, first thing I did was, okay, we exchanged messages back and forth for about 2 weeks and said, okay, here's some different ideas we can talk about. Here's some things I can bring to your audience that are unique and make something interesting or whatever. So, because obviously, like, I'm going to have more to gain from working with him than he is with me. But it's like, what am I bringing to the table to be something different and fun and interesting or whatever that his audience doesn't have right now?
Sure.
Right. Otherwise, what's his benefit of wanting to work with me?
Unless he just, has an interest in you, and
that's cool, right? If that's the case. But I always tell people, because I see a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to collaborate with more people. I want to do," but like, what's your value? What do you bring to the table? Why should somebody work with you? Like, think about all those things, and then have a fun thing to do. Like, you have a rare opportunity to work with somebody else that also has a busy schedule,
right?
And your recommendation was we should play games against each other. I mean, sure. But I was honest, I said, cool, I will still do it. I think it's fun. I like playing games,
Right.
but I'm not going to prioritize that. So if something else comes up, like I will do that when time is available. I
Sure.
will make time to do something different
Cool.
because I know there's more value in that. And it's harsh but true. Again, I think it's that treat
Yeah.
your content like a business sort of thing.
Yeah, that's always my struggle too, is like when I'm looking to collab with people, you want to at least, for me, I want to work with people that are around the same level in terms of like
Sure.
uh how big we are, I guess, quote
Yeah.
unquote.
Your
I'm
audience size.
the audience size. Yes, perfect. So because I never want to seem like I'm trying to like clout grab or whatever the kids say. I can never remember the name of
Yeah,
that.
clout chasing.
Clout chase. Yes. So that's always like interesting to me. Like when because I put out a tweet for those that don't know, I put out a tweet and was like, hey, are there any creators in the gaming space that would either like to or know somebody that would like to come on the podcast? And you just were there and be like, hey man, what's up? Let's do this.
Sure.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh wow, awesome. So
and my audience isn't huge. I mean, I'm almost 16K on like YouTube, and I don't
yeah,
know, I maybe have like 5,000 followers on Twitter or something. Same thing on Twitch. So like, I
yeah,
have a moderate sized
yeah,
audience, right? But I don't have a problem working with people smaller or bigger.
right,
I always simply, if you are going to work with somebody bigger, shoot your shot. Why not? Worst
right.
they can say is no.
Worst I could say is no.
But
Yeah,
understand that the further apart you are, you have to come with more of a plan, right?
right,
Like, hey, I have this topic I want to talk about, or hey, I saw you mention this on your show. I'm in that field, or I've done that before. We can talk about that, or whatever, right?
right.
And give them an opportunity and say, okay, cool. It's probably worth having you on, right?
Yeah,
Let's do this. Otherwise, it's kind of like you're probably one of, I don't know, probably 50 messages they get in a week if somebody wants to work with them.
exactly. And you just get buried at the bottom of their
Yeah,
DMs.
absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean I think that's why collaboration is so important. It's because it builds up the trust within the community, like because the community of Magic is like this big, and then the community of content creators is much smaller.
Oh, yeah, way
Um,
smaller.
and like you want to be known as somebody who's going to show up to people for people going on their podcasts, and then like it's a two-way street kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Some of it too is legitimizing your brand, right?
yeah,
If you're out there and
yeah,
you're working
no,
with
for sure.
people and people have seen you, like when you get to the point of trying to get sponsors or maybe working with somebody at an event or whatever, there's that, oh yeah, I've worked with this person before. Oh yeah, I've seen him doing content with these other people. Or
Yeah,
yeah, he was at this other event or whatever it is, right? So there's already the recognition that goes with that and legitimizes you a little bit more, other than somebody who sits at home, makes YouTube videos that get 100 views and you've
yeah,
got 800 followers or whatever it is, right?
right. No, yeah, that's a huge part of it. And I hadn't even thought of that. Cool. Do you
Yeah,
want?
when it comes to the business side of game industry stuff, I'm in too deep.
Oh man, you are a wealth of knowledge. Honestly, like it's you're saying things that like I'm gonna have to re-listen to this podcast just to like learn more.
I told you, not an exaggeration. I could literally do this for hours.
Yeah,
Like seriously.
yeah. That's so. When it comes to, I guess let's just keep going down the rabbit hole. When it
Yeah, sure.
comes to like trying to get sponsorships or working with certain brands, is that kind of your mentality? Just shoot your shot, or is there like any kind of strategy to it? Obviously, there's a strategy, but like, what is a strategy
Uh,
that you've seen work versus
there's a lot of things. Like I guess I give like the short version of stuff, but I would say first off, make it brands that you can honestly support,
right?
right? Like I don't ever want to be one of those people that promote something to my audience that I wouldn't
Yeah,
use,
and like,
right? I did a thing with Into the AM that does clothing, right?
okay,
We had reached out, went back and forth, and I told him, okay, cool. I'm not totally familiar with your brand. How about I order some things first? I'll try them on or whatever,
mm-hmm.
and depending on how I feel, I'll come back and we'll do it, right?
Sure,
Stuff came in. I tried them out for a couple of days, put them through the wash. Everything was good. Cool. Let's do a thing, right? So
yeah,
now when I'm putting this out here to my audience, I can say like, no, I've tried the clothes on. I wear them. They're sweet. They feel good. their
They
quality.
feel
Right?
good, look good, you know.
Yeah, so I don't have somebody come back and go like, dude, they sent me stuff and it was too small, and like I washed it once and it had holes in it and whatever.
Right.
Now
And
they
then
don't
that's
trust
your name.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing to me. Like most recently, after I did the boxer brief video, I reached out to the 3 brands I reviewed the best because I'm like, well, I'm probably going to buy more of these anyway now that I know.
Yeah.
So let me just see. Now, one of them did get back to me and said they were just full up on content creators right now, whatever. But
Sure.
I'm at least on their radar now for next round.
Yeah.
The other 2 I didn't hear back from.
So
Oh well, too bad, so sad.
Are you emailing them? Are you DMing them on Twitter, or like what's that process like?
Actually, okay, MeUndies, actually, because they have a very active Twitter account, I started out joking with them and then I sent them a thing.
Yeah.
So I use that as an opportunity to like build a little bit of a relationship and then like, hey, let me send y'all a letter and whatever, and let's try to get this started. But also, a good example is like Ultra Pros, one of my big sponsors, super good to me, no complaints. When I sent my thing to Ultra Pro, as a matter of fact, I sent my request to Ultra Pro when I only had, I think I just crossed like 7,000 subscribers on YouTube at the time. And I was just like, look, here's my background. Here's what I'm wanting from a sponsor. Here's what I can do and provide. Here's my plan, whatever. Laid it all out.
Sure.
And literally, as soon as I got a response back, they said, we never get this much info from anybody.
You are thorough, sir.
Everybody else basically says, well, I want money to talk about your thing, and
right.
Here's what I want to get paid or whatever. And that's it. And it's like, yeah, but they don't know you. They don't know what you're going to do for them, how much they should invest in you. Like, and it wasn't that big a deal to me. And I keep a media kit now, so like I can update it every 6 weeks with like as my stats change or whatever, so I can attach that to the things I send out. But a matter of fact, I have some eyeglasses here because I'm wearing contacts right now. These just came in earlier today, and I'll be doing a review video of those, and they're going to pay me for them. And I literally just reached out to them. I was like, hey, I bought some of your glasses 2 years ago. I'm about to be buying some more. My content's grown a ton since I first reached out, whatever. It's like, and they were like, cool, yeah, we're looking for some people. They have like some new blue light blocking lenses that they can put in prescription glasses that they want to have up. So I'm going to review those. They're going to pay me for them. They're reimbursing me for some classes. And if it goes well, we'll make it a monthly thing. But if not, hey, I at least got a small bag for doing one review video.
Yeah. Yeah, no. The only like sponsorship I've ever really done was with Card Hoarder. They give me a loan program so I can do Magic Online content. So
makes sense.
That's kind of like how I basically just sent them an email and was like, hey, I stream. This is how many followers I have. I can shout you out every time I stream. And that's kind of how that happened. And they're like, here's an account. Have fun. Just mention us once a stream and you're good.
Yeah, and that works for both of y'all, right? Because you get access to all the cards now.
Yep.
And for them, it's basically low to no cost.
Yeah. It's,
so, like, to get some people sent to their site. So that's one that works out, right?
Yeah.
So again, it kind of comes back to like we're saying, talking about to other creators is understand what you're offering, right? Have a plan. Like even if you do a media kit that says, here are my numbers on TikTok or Twitch or whatever it is, include like, I'm able to do these things, right? I can do these, and I put everything, like I can be a host, I can be a commentator, which matter of fact, I'm commentating an event this weekend online. Like,
can you share what it is or?
Yeah, it's a degenerate gaming group. It's a Magic tournament that's being sponsored by Ultra Pro.
Oh, awesome.
Being run on Magic Online. So yeah,
fun. Yeah.
But one of the things really, like you're saying, just shoot your shot, right? Don't be afraid. The biggest thing, and if you notice, except for Ultra Pro, the brands I've talked about are actually not gaming brands.
Yeah.
Right. And I did that purposely because one of my beliefs is that it's very easy as a gamer to want to go to any of the supply companies, go to Logitech or whatever, right?
Yep.
But to me, I looked at that and said, each of those brands already has huge creators they're following or sponsoring or whatever in that space already, right? I'll be honest, I don't know how Raid Shadow Legends pays everybody because that's where I see their ads on every other person.
I don't know. Like, they got
I feel
dumb money
that
though.
I haven't got my piece of the Raid Shadow Legends money yet.
Right.
But they're everywhere. I mean, I watch Guga Foods, which is an insane food channel on YouTube, and he has Raid Shadow Legends sponsorships, and I don't even know why. So yeah, whatever. Some people will just spend the money, right?
Yeah.
But if I go to Logitech and say, look, I already use your mouse, I use this thing, or Elgato, right? I'm using their microphone, I use one of their cameras, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're already sponsoring huge stuff in that space.
Right.
So unless I'm also a really big account, what are my odds
Yeah.
of being valuable to them?
Yeah.
Or
If you're not
one
like
of
ninja level,
yeah,
like
or one of my viewers buying something specifically through me or because of me on their brand because they probably are already watching somebody else they're getting that from,
yeah.
right? But when I went to, the Boxer Briefs company or to, Payne Glasses or whatever, I knew that there were no other gamers, or if they were, I couldn't find them,
Yeah.
or especially no other Magic players that are being sponsored by these people or working with these people. So that means when I make my proposal to them, I can say that clear, like, hey, I've looked around, nobody's supporting your stuff in my genre.
In your niche.
So
Yeah.
I can get you access to a whole new market that you don't have access to. Now my reach
Absolutely.
isn't gigantic, but
Right.
something's better than nothing,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So it opened up the door to have that conversation. And they were like, yeah, sure. And like I said, I have 4 new pairs of glasses sitting here, and they're going to, when the video's done, they're going to send me a check. And I might get a monthly deal. I don't know, maybe not, but I'll still take the short term
Right.
because I got free glasses and some money. That sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
I actually just got new glasses too, so that'd have been clutch.
And not to oversell them, because even before, like I said, I've been using theirs for a couple of years. Super cheap and still really amazing. Because as anybody who's bought glasses, even with insurance, sometimes you're still paying $150
Oh yeah.
or so, which
Yeah.
is insane. I ordered 2 years ago, got 3 pairs of glasses with express shipping for, I think it was $108.
Nice.
No insurance. So that's why I'm a big fan of their stuff, and their glasses are great.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
But yeah, think about who you're sponsoring, why, long term or short term. There's a bunch of different levels you can approach stuff at. Sometimes even say like, hey, maybe we just do a trial run. I do one video for you, or you sponsor one event or whatever, and we'll see what you get out of it or whatever.
Right.
And if it works, great for everybody.
Right.
Because for me, a bunch of people do offer affiliate deals, right? And I'll
Yeah.
be clear and say I have turned down several of them, mostly because I don't feel like I would actively push enough of each of the affiliates to make enough off of them,
Right.
right? And I would rather not have 15 affiliate tags on my stuff as opposed to just having one or two actual sponsors and make what I'm going to make.
Right.
Because unless I'm actively pushing my viewers or my audience to all of these things, I'm not, especially if you're making 3 to 5% on everything, I'm just not going to make enough.
Right.
And I get it when you're smaller and you just want to establish like, hey, I'm at least working with the brand,
Sure.
I'm making a little bit of money. Like, it makes total sense. So I'm not going
Right.
to tell people not to do it. But for me personally, I was fortunately in a position I didn't have to do that, because I think we're also in a world where most of your audience is savvy enough to understand sponsorships and what's going on. And like, you don't look better because you have 10 affiliate tags on your stuff saying like,
Right.
I work with all these people. Like, that's not impressing anybody but you.
Right.
So really think about how much I can make out of it. Now, if you have 3 or 4 affiliates and you're actively pushing people to those brands and you're mentioning them in every stream, and maybe they're tagged in your YouTube videos or whatever, maybe you do a post on Twitter once a month for them,
Right.
you'll probably get enough of a return that, okay, maybe it's not a big check, but maybe they're sending you $25 a month or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you have 10 of them, there's no way you're going to get
Yeah.
anything.
That would be so exhausting.
Yeah. I've seen people that do it though. I mean, I've seen people on Twitch that have, I swear, I can watch for like 3 minutes and not see the same logo come up on a little like banner
sure.
wheel, So some people are willing to do it. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. Cool. Yeah. I mean, we've definitely talked, I think, pretty extensively about not only your background, but not only your background in content, but your background in Magic. You've definitely shared a bunch of tips and tricks, and your background in content creation in general. All good stuff. I mean, your perspective is super unique because of how long you've been in the gaming space, not only as a content creator, but also as you owned your own store. Like, that's super unique. You've worked with brands even before it was cool to work with brands.
Yeah.
So this has been extremely insightful. I hope for the listeners, definitely for me. Do you have anything else you want to add on here at the end of the pod before we do all the social media stuff?
Don't have anything else I want to add. And I will say this, actually, from And mostly because this is something that's come up recently because there's been a bunch of surveys out and whatever about just the lack of diversity in the game industry. And a
Yeah.
lot of the surveys are based around like the board game industry. One of the things I want to say to people is like, to help diversity, be open about directly inviting people into your space.
Yeah.
That's like the best thing you can do. Not just like, hey, you're welcome here, but like specifically, we want you here.
It's a
right?
safe space. It's like, no,
Yeah.
like you are coming with me and we're going to build a thing or make a thing or collab on a
Because
thing.
I was trying to describe to people, a story. Matter of fact, I think I posted this on TikTok earlier this afternoon. Was a story from early in the industry where I first went to Gamma, which is the big industry trade show.
Yeah.
And this is maybe when I was like 24, I think, maybe around that time. And I'm walking around, and I think I'm the only black person there at the time, maybe one of two. And everybody's being addressed like, well, what's the name of your store? Where's your store at? Blah, blah, whatever. But when I'm introducing my people, it's who do you work for? Right? Because it's so uncommon.
Yeah.
They didn't even process the fact that like I'm one of the owners that they're like everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. And we're still kind of at that point where there's just not a lot of that extra representation. I told people, and it comes in a lot of ways, right? Whether you look at board game covers that have no diverse backgrounds on, or games that I jokingly say don't even have like the token character. Right? You don't even have that.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, I said that's the stuff you kind of have to actively change. And we're seeing little signs of it and things are changing, but yeah, it's funny because people are like, how did this happen? I'm like, dude, it's been this way for 20 years. This isn't new. We just haven't made steps forward. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point, because it seems like based on companies would love to sell us on the fact that everything's diverse now and everything's in, all for one for all. But in the real world, it's definitely not. Like,
sure. I tell people, look around and see how many black people you see in charge of things in the game industry. Like very little, right? And even in content creation, like how many outside of like maybe fighting games, I don't know that many genres where you see a lot of black people even doing content, right?
Yeah.
There were people that still think it's political if you talk about it or bring it up.
No, it's not at all. I definitely don't think so.
Yeah, and one of the funny thing is I tell people that's actually one of the reasons I present my gameplay videos and my content the way I do. They open and close with me being full screen, right? Purposely so people get used to having a conversation with a black person in the game industry speaking from a position of expertise.
Yeah.
Right, and that's actually very purposeful. And people, and it's funny because
I think it's important
with a lot of people,
important too.
And they didn't know why, right? And it's like it's something I knew and I brought in. And one of those things I said, like, how can I do something different? How can I make something stand out from the way people present content?
Right.
And I looked and said, well, everybody's basically opening their videos with like them in the corner of the screen talking about a thing they're going to play or showing their deck or whatever. And it's just like, well, what if I just did a full screen opening and closing and like had a real conversation with people?
Right.
And even for that 1 minute, it really changes people's perspective. And it was a big deal.
Oh, yeah. No, that's definitely very important and definitely something gamers need to get better with.
Oh, for sure.
Because I'm sure Magic Twitter is a cesspool almost every week, but sometimes there are good points that are brought up, and that's definitely one.
I will say not nearly as bad as many other games. Still bad.
Really?
Just gaming as a whole has problems,
right.
But not as bad as a lot of other games that I encounter.
Yeah.
Boy, do I have some stories.
I
don't know if some of them are even safe to air.
I was going to say that might be a conversation for a different podcast or another night.
For sure.
So if you want to tell folks where you're at, where they can find you on the internet and where they can follow you and subscribe to you, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me just about everywhere at PowrDragn, PowrDragn, and literally I think everywhere: TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, gaming, Twitch. Like nice. We have a podcast called Color Magic. You can download it just about everywhere. We're hosted on Podbean though, if you want to check it out there. And if not, you need a reminder, you can go to linktree.com/PowrDragn where I have stuff up. Or come follow me because I'm a good follow on Twitter. I have all kinds of stuff I follow and I'm interested in and talk about over there.
Oh yeah, very eclectic follow for sure. So thank you everybody for listening for Twitch chat for hanging out, watching. I appreciate you all. Again, this is PowrDragn, Daquan Watson. He's full-time streamer, and I think that it was real important for my listeners to just hear his, not only his story, but his journey through, 20 plus years in the gaming industry. And now he's doing the damn thing as a content creator. It's awesome. Daquan, thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming on. And this has been, you have such an interesting take on the gaming because you have so much time in the industry. So I appreciate that.
I try, if I have the knowledge, it's good to at least be able to share it. Like holding on to all of it doesn't do anything.
Like a dragon.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, in terms of my socials and everything, you can go check me out on Twitter at LessAlex, twitch.tv/LessAlex, and YouTube, LessAlex. And then if you enjoyed the podcast, you can find it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure to rate it with a 5-star review. If you didn't like it, I don't know why you're still listening, but you can DM me on Twitter and tell me that the podcast sucks, because don't give me a 4-star or a 1-star. That's jabron.
Don't worry. I don't suck. That'll help you.
Yeah, right. And if you want to go above and beyond, check me out on patreon.com/LessAlex. I appreciate everyone who's been rocking with me through the whole change and everything. Oh, look, Jo followed on YouTube and Twitch. Love how many new cool creators. I assume he's talking to you. But yeah, shout out Jo here at the end of the pod. Thanks for joining us. But yeah, thank you, everybody. You're all amazing. Be kind to one another. And until next time, catch you on the flippy flop.